You guys, your minute. Yeah, you go. Dr. Driscoll, you take it away.
My name's Neil Driscoll. I'm a professor of geology and geophysics at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I'm also the director of the geoscience program. And I'd like to take a few minutes, and it'll come back to address some of the concerns here, but just go back to some of the questions that were asked from Morro Bay. What is this data set going to provide us? That's a question we really need to get out in front. The surveys have been what we call nested. They go from high frequency imaging the very superficial sediment, the offsets, how often the faults occur, how much the earth moves in each fault. We build up recurrence intervals. We build up how often faults move in the past, when was the last time it moved, how much did it move. What we're also trying to do is survey the geometry of the fault through what we call the seismogenic zone, the zone that breaks brittly like chocolate on a Milky Way bar. We need to understand that geometry because it's critical to ground motion studies. So what Graham Kent tried to explain to you, and I respectfully disagree with Dr. Gibson, we have taken time to make the array, the gun size. Dr. Kent used 6,000 cubic inches off of Cascadia margin because they were trying to survey something deep. We need to survey how the shallow surveys merge with the intermediate and deep, and we have used a smaller sound source. The ramform ships he talks about that tow 10 streamers have bigger guns. Okay? We have optimized this so we minimize impact in the ocean and we target what we want to understand. Also, the data will be open sourced, the raw data and the process data. We have GeoTrace, one of the state-of-the-art industry partners that have helped design it, will be riding on the ship, are processing some of the data that Graham Kent collected right now to give us insights into QA, QC. I would say that we've done our due diligence. Thank you.
I certainly agree with Dr. Driscoll on the scientific importance, but again, I respectfully disagree on some of his some of the conclusions as to what the industry might be able to do or not do. And I don't remember if I brought it up in my comments of a couple minutes ago, but Dr. Kent and others referenced that they had talked to industry, and industry couldn't get the more modern, larger streamer boats into shallow water. Well, in fact, I have had contact with industry that indicates that under nominal conditions, they can bring 10 streamers into 25 meters of water, just like the Langseth can bring its 4. Now, nominal conditions need to be looked at in terms of obstructions and currents and winds and probable behaviors of streamers. That's the kind of analysis that I think needs to be done to decide how many we can bring in. Because again, we come right back to the question of environmental impacts. And as to the question of bigger guns, lesser guns, a boat can tow whatever sound source it needs. And I conclude, without having studied it in detail myself, that they've sized the sound sources, the air guns, correctly to get the information over the section they need. An industry boat would do very much the same thing. I disagree that it is simply a matter of deep water surveying under certain kinds of oil reservoir characteristics that drives industry to do the experiment that it needs to do. And I disagree that you would necessarily lose the image quality of the shallow section if you towed more streamers. And to just give you a simple idea that if shallow is a concern, a boat towing 10 streamers could simply use the interior 4 for certain parts of the section of data that they would acquire, and they would be doing just what the Langseth is doing. So there's a lot of manipulation is a word, but data processing is probably a more correct term. And that really was the essence of my next point in terms of the state of the art. There is an integrated process of deciding how the survey is to be conducted and how the data that are acquired there are then processed with an eye toward the ultimate interpretation. What's the product? What's the image? What's the volumes of seismic image that are going to be used to try to draw the geologic and seismological conclusions that need to be drawn. This is a process that is integrated. There's a full spectrum of that kind of work that's being done with very close coordination of data processing as well as acquisition and interpretation. Those are the things that I have not seen done in this. This is what I think independent review of this process